Well, first, I've heard the phrase a lot of coaches have their sprinters run cross country because it gets them in shape. Now, the first thing first is we have to define what it means in your philosophy to get your athletes in shape. Does that mean you're trying to increase their tolerance, aerobic tolerance? Does that mean that you're trying to get them mentally stronger for their races when they start to sprint? What is the definition of getting them in shape? In my opinion, no one who sprints, including 800 runners, should run cross country for several reasons. For your athletes that are sprinters, including 800 runners, in the summer and the fall, especially if your team doesn't have fall training, they should be doing a lot of sessions that involve sprint mechanics, which when you're dealing with cross country, a lot of their mechanics are different, especially with your arms and sometimes the way that the foot strikes the ground. A maximum velocity and acceleration, power, and things like that. Those are the things that your sprinters should be working on in the fall and the summer so that when they get into their season, they'll be ready to go. Typically with cross country, the runners are getting a lot of slow twitch running. So there's a lot of jogging. Yes, they do pick up their paces, but there's more so jogging than anything. And for an athlete that needs to be powerful and have fast twitch muscles, cross country counteracts that and it slows them down. So again, as I mentioned before, they should be working on sprint mechanics, things that induce power. They should be working on their maximum velocity and their acceleration. Now, as far as the 800 goes, I know that I have people that believe that they should, that they shouldn't. I'm gonna give you my intake on why I believe they shouldn't. Now, before I get there are two types of 800 runners. You have your sprint-based 800 runner who's more of a 4-8 guy or girl. They need to have some induced power. So cross country wouldn't necessarily help them. Yes, it will increase their aerobic capacity, but it's not gonna give them the power, the speed, the anaerobic work that they need in order to run the 4 and the 8. On the flip side of that, if you have a kid that's more of an 8-miler and they're better at the mile, then cross country would work for them because that's more of their, I guess, their event. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that 8-16 kid cannot drop down to the 4, but typically those milers, they use the 8 as their speed. Unless the kid is an 800, 1600 runner, I don't think they need to do cross country. So for those coaches and athletes out there that are trying to figure out what they should do for their summer and their fall, if you're not going to do cross country, here are some things that you can do in your summer and your fall to prepare you for when track season starts. First and foremost, you definitely need to work on your sprint mechanics. As a sprinter, the better your sprint mechanics are, the faster you're gonna run. So you should be doing things like walking, skipping A's, walking, skipping B's, cycling, ankling, bounding, to just help you get your sprint mechanics better, help you learn to apply force to your track and things like that. You should also be working on your acceleration. Literally every event on the track, including the longer distances, the athletes need to know how to accelerate. Now, as short sprinters, 1, 2, 4 hurdlers, we need to be able to accelerate even better because it's a huge part of our race. So that's another thing that you need to be working on. Also, maximum velocity. Not saying that cross country doesn't do maximum velocity running, but we need it a little more as sprinters because obviously the athlete that can hold their maximum velocity the longest typically wins the race. Other things that you can do: hill runs, stair runs, wicket drills. Wicket drills are the little banana hurdles if you don't know what those are called. Plyometrics. If you are a person that wants to do more volume, that's great too. You can also give your athletes fartlek runs. A fartlek run, if you don't know what that is, it's where you run for a specific amount of time and you either walk or jog for that same amount of time. So for example, if you run for a minute, you're gonna walk or jog for a minute. Now typically when they're running in that minute or whatever the time is you give them, you wanna set a specific goal in meters that they're trying to reach in that minute. So for example, if the kid is running a minute, boy or girl, you want them to try to get between 300 and 350 meters every time they hear that whistle to run. Jog can be a trot, but you're going to more so be running more than you are jogging. You can also do something called 400 the hard way. I think a lot of people call it the UCLA 400, where you'll run 100 meters at a certain pace. Typically in the summertime, it would be 14, 15 seconds for a male or 15, 16 for a female, maybe even a little faster. and they'll either jog back 50 meters or walk back 50 meters, and then they'll run again. And they'll just complete that until the 400 is over. They can also do X's. What X's are, everyone's done X's before, is where you take the football field, you'll have them run the diagonal and then jog across. Run the diagonal and jog across. You'll give them a specific amount of time to do that. You can go 10 minutes, you can go 15 minutes, you can go 20 minutes. With those runs, an athlete should be running at least 70 to 80% of their maximum velocity when they're training. They shouldn't be running slower than that. Anything slower, again, would become more aerobic, and we don't want that as sprinters. So that is my take on why I believe that sprinters, including 800 runners, should not run cross country, especially if they're trying to be powerful or run faster. If you disagree with anything that I've said, it's great. Put it down in the comments. We'll talk about it. It's nothing better than having good conversation with coaches, because the better we become, the better our athletes become, the better our sport becomes, and that's the only thing that matters. Signing out. Let's have a conversation.